Okay, well, good morning everybody and welcome. This is Sharon speaking and welcome to our third webinar, which is about submitting your data to the PBRF IT system. Thank you all for making the effort to be here today, and I hope that the technology gods are smiling on you this morning. So, yes, I'm Sharon and I am the Communications and Stakeholder Support Person for PBRF, and I also have Amber Flynn with me, our Program Manager. Okay, yes, introductions format. It's going to be pretty much the same as what we have done with our other webinars. We'll talk through our slides and talk about some key points. The difference this time is we'll be flicking over to the IT. We're going to use this test system to show you some of the important tasks and functions. Your mics are muted as they have been in previous webinars. If you have questions, please use the little question icon that you'll see, a little green question mark. Just to, as we've said before, if there are lots and lots of questions, or if we feel like the questions are either something that we want to take offline and think a bit more about, or they're too specific, then that's what we'll do. So don't worry if a question is not answered here and now, it will be. And as always, we will put all the questions together and we'll make sure that they're uploaded to our information site so that everything that everybody asks and all answers are available to all of you. Another note too, as you know, we're running some drop-ins quite soon in Christchurch, Dunedin, Auckland, Wellington and Rotorua, and if you are really wanting a little bit of extra help with the technology side of things, we're more than happy to walk you through that. So just let us know when you make your appointment perhaps that that's what you'd like to focus on. The webinar is going to be recorded and uploaded to our information site. Hopefully you've all, we've put the other two up there and they are there for your viewing pleasure. Okay, so what's the purpose of our webinar today? It's really to give you an overview, a fairly broad overview of the PBRF IT system, to demystify it for those of you who may not have used it before. We're not going to go into the real nitty-gritty of the system. We felt that we'll just try to keep it reasonably simple. What we are going to do with some of the little tasks that make up the system is we're going to create some little videos and put them on our site. So we'll let you know more about that later. But for example, using the FTP, we'll put that as a video, just a couple of minute one, and then you don't have to go all the way through this one just to find out one technical detail. Okay, the other purpose is just to talk a little bit about things that can go wrong, looking at errors, to provide an opportunity for questions, and once again to build your confidence. And really the message that we want to give you today is that the system is there to assist you. It's not a formidable beast and you can't break it. So we hope that you'll come out of the webinar feeling that way. Okay, what we're going to cover, we'll look at an overview of the system, logging in, creating an evidence portfolio manually and adding an NRO to that, editing an EP, and then uploading an EP through the system interface. Uploading an EP using FTP, but we're not really going to step through that. We'll just talk very briefly about it. Then the staff, checking your submitted EP and having a look through the logs, the staff data file and the validation system. So feel free to ask questions as we go along, or if you'd like to, leave it to the end. Okay, so just a little step back. We thought it would be useful just to have a look at the main stages of the whole PBRF system. So as you'll all be aware, we're in the submission phase now, and we will be until July next year. And that, of course, that's what we're talking about really today. But we just thought we'd very briefly take you through the other wee bits of it, which are the assignment phase and the assessment phase. Yeah, so the chair assessment phase, this is the 14th of July to the 13th of August next year. And this is the stage at which the panel chairs assign the EP. So the system's got all its data in it. You guys have done your job and you can sit back and relax. The system's got the staff data details and the EPs. So now the chairs come in and they assign these EPs to the panel members. They might request that an EP be cross-referenced to another panel. And they approve or they decline requests for cross-referral that have come in from other panel chairs, and that includes the Māori Knowledge and Development Panel Chair and the Pacific Research Panel Chair. Okay, then we have the assignment stage. So during this time, the panelists can now see what they've been given to assess. They can raise any issues, such as conflict of interest, and they can review the EPs and get ready to assess them. Okay, and then we move to the assessment phase, and this is happening the last part of next year, so August to December 2018. And here we have the individual assessment and the pre-panel assessment, and then the panel assessment. We thought that we would not go into that anymore now. There's lots of information in the assessment guidelines about what happens there, but we'll also, I think, put together a short webinar for you just to tell you a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes during that assessment and the checks and balances that are in place there. Okay, so let's get back to what we're doing now, which is the submission of your data, and we'll have a look at the system. Okay, so here are the system requirements and the browsers that you'll need. Now you can use other browsers. These are not the only ones, but please check the user guide, the IT system user guide, for any requirements or any more information that you need about that. But I'm imagining most of you, these are the browsers you'll be using.
We also recommend that you do use something like Chrome or Firefox or Safari. Internet Explorer is not the greatest web browser to use with the system, as we have been discovering at our end.
Yes, but we won't talk any more about that. Okay, so there you go. You also need to enable cookies and JavaScript. And again, if you're not sure about how to turn JavaScript on, there is detailed information in our user guide about how to do that. Okay, so who's doing all this stuff? Well, that's you guys, and the role officially is the TEO Administrator. Okay, so just some information about that role. So this is actually a role that the system recognises as a role that you'll take, but it's also a role that the system knows that you're logging in as that person. That means you can't do anything that you shouldn't, and you only will look at all of the data for your own organisation. So just be very assured that the system knows exactly who's on and what they can see and what they can do, and nobody can see anything that they shouldn't. Yes, so Amber, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just also thinking about if you're wondering who in your organisation should have this TEO Administrator access, if you haven't done this previously. It's important to just remember that if you are a TEO Administrator, you see all of the information for your organisation. So that's why we've advised people to not give a TEO Administrator access to all of their staff, or, because you do need to think about those issues of privacy, sensitivity, potentially accessing or changing information in EPs and things like that. So just think about those things when you're deciding who's the appropriate person or people to be TEO administrators for your organisation.
Yeah. Excellent point. Thanks, Amber. Okay, so yes, you can have more than one TEO administrator for your TEO. That's fine. So what do? Well, they create the EPs, they upload the EPs, they can view all the EP data. Same with staff data, and upload NRO files, and they run reports. Okay, so We are aware that there's going to be a really big range of skill and experience level out there. So once again, as I've said before, if you feel like this is just really not at your level, too easy or too difficult, we do apologise, but we're trying to make the system as accessible and simple for everybody. So just talking here about the two key elements that are involved in this. That's the staff data file. It contains all the important information about all the staff
who are submitting
their EPs, yes, not all the staff. And then the second thing, of course, is the evidence portfolios, and that's where the research sits. These two get matched together essentially, and once they do, the system says, okay, that all looks great, and they become ready to assess. Okay, so how are EPs created? They can either be manually created, and we'll go through that, and I'll just show you very briefly how that can be done. Probably if you're a small organisation, you may do it that way, but we're aware that probably most of you will have a lot of EPs to put up, and that wouldn't be the way you'd do it. And in that case, the EPs would be created using XML. So the data is prepared in a file and then uploaded either through the interface on the system, which we'll also show you, or FTP, that's the file transfer protocol. XML, it's just a tool for storing and carrying data, nothing too fancy or complicated about it. Okay, so what happens to these EPs? I'll just talk through some of the statuses of the EPs to try to make it a little bit clearer. I put it in words, and then my brilliant colleague has made a great diagram. So if you're wordy, here's what happens, and if you're a picture person, that's coming up next. Okay, so essentially the shell or the frame of the EP is created, and then the research outputs are put into it, or the NROs and the OROs. It then gets submitted for validation, and it becomes active if it has the requisite number of the requisite data in it, which would be 1 NRO. Yeah. Then the researcher details are loaded and matched, and that's where the staff data file comes in, and it becomes accessible. If it hasn't been submitted for validation, or it has been submitted but it's not validated, then it is in draft status. And here's a diagram to show you that. Okay, so the EP is coming in here, created. It's in draft status at this point. We validate it. It might fail because it doesn't have an NRO, for example, or there could be other errors with it. It passes and it becomes active. Then it's matched against the staff data file. If that fails, for example, the numbers don't match up, or there isn't a staff data record for that EP, it'll fail and it'll stay in that same status of active. If everything matches up and it's successful validation, it then becomes an accessible EP. Did you want to add anything? No? Okay. Okay, we're going to switch over now and have a look at our IT system. And here's a picture of one of the PBRF team here, ready to help you with any of your problems. Okay, so I have logged on. This is a test system here. Now, of course, you won't be logging on to the test system. You'll be logging on to the live production system, which is already up and running. For that, you need an ESL login, and we note that almost all of you have, probably about 3/4 of you, I think, have applied for those now. Most of you should have received those. If you haven't, yeah, do it now. Get it in, and then you can start getting into the system and having a play with it, have a look around. So you just send a form through to us asking for your login, and that will be sent to the ministry, and you should have it back very shortly. Okay, so here we are. The first thing we notice, the system is telling us the phase. The system is telling us the phase that it's in, and that's submission phase at the moment. What else can we see? We can see active evidence portfolios, and you'll see that in our case we've uploaded one and we have manually entered none. We can see draft EPs. Remember the status we said before, the draft EP? Any that have been withdrawn. So you can put an EP up and then go, oh crikey, actually no, and take it out again, and that's fine, and you can just resubmit it again. We can have a look at NROs that have been uploaded, and we can have a look and see how many staff members are in the staff data. Remember, when you're looking at this, this is only for your organisation that you'll see. Staff members not matching an EP, and accessible EPs. So remember, that's the one that has been through all the validation, it matches, we've found a staff member in the staff data file, so it's ready to go. Okay. We've got 3 tabs at the top here, the staff data, and we'll come back to that in a minute. The evidence portfolio tab and the validation logs tab. The validation logs tells us what goes right and what goes wrong, and we'll come back to those as well. Okay, my details. I'm Mrs. Peacock for the purposes of today, and if I want to, I can go in and I can change anything I want to here. So maybe I'll just add a middle name. Yeah. And Amber, you wanted to say something about details here?
Yeah. So if you are entering your contact details, nobody has access to this, so it is really just seen by you, and if TEC needs to run an extract for information, then we can do that as well. But otherwise, if you're a TEO administrator, no other TEO administrator at your organisation can see this information.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you. So let's have a wee look at the EP tab now. All right, so from here we can see everything that's gone in and the different statuses of it. We can filter, if we like, by, well, up here you'll see we can filter by subject area. So I'm going to have a look and see. I happen to know that our one EP that's there is chemistry, so I think that's what I'll search on. But you know why that? Status. Yeah, exactly. So that then brings in the second filter we have done here, which is the status. Okay. Now you'll see. So we have an EP with that subject field, and it's active. So we can search by all the subject areas. And the statuses, which as you will recall were active. Let's have a look, we've got one that's accessible too. So that was the same EP that we just saw before, it's active and accessible. Draft, those ones that haven't, I better turn off chemistry. Sorry. Okay, and you'll see that we have 4 there in draft. And withdrawn, and we haven't withdrawn any. Okay, so that's all there to help you. Let's have a little go at creating an EP online. Okay, so I'm just going to put one in now. The EP identifier, you decide that. You don't have to know you don't have to know a number, that's your number. Okay, here does it contain any confidential research, and has release permission been obtained? Okay, so that's something you need to, that has to be filled in, and it's important. Okay. Yes, so anything that you're not sure of, we've got some really fairly rich and detailed data in the tick boxes, which come up on any time you're trying to do anything, essentially. Down the side here. Okay, so the NSN, this number must be a valid one. And then I would put in my details, or the researcher details, I should say. Date of birth, you can use this, but it's actually quicker to just do that. And I have lost my arrows. Okay, my field of research description. Can't find anything. Okay, I choose my panel. I choose my subject area. So the second is not a filter of the first, so if you know what I mean.
And I think the other thing to note is that when you are creating an EP, it will give you the full drop-down list of all subject areas. But if you are creating EPs from scratch, you do need to make sure that the subject area is actually assessed by the panel. So in this case, if you were submitting to biological sciences and your subject area was anthropology and archaeology, the TEC would actually change that with consultation with the chair of the panel, because anthropology and archaeology aren't assessed in the biological sciences panel.
Yeah. Okay, I'll put my platform of research contextual summary in here. Okay, I'm just going to... Okay, and sorry, and I forgot my field of research once again. Okay, and there it is.
And one thing that we, or the TEC agreed to do, was to make sure that that platform of research contextual summary always remains open and visible, and that is for both the TEO and for the panels. So this is what it would look like if you were a panelist opening this portfolio.
Okay, do we want to answer that question? Yes, so somebody has asked, can you upload an EP prior to uploading the staff data file? Yes, you can. It just won't validate, and I'll show you that in a minute. Yeah. Okay, so here's one that we've created, and what we can do now is we can edit it if we want to. We can do things like add special circumstances. We have some checks there. And we can edit researcher details and so on and so forth. We can also add the research outputs. So it is important to note, though, that's only if I've created an EP manually, like I've done now, that I can edit it this way. If I had uploaded it through XML or through the FTP, it would have to be a different way, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, I'm going to add an nominated research output to this EP. Okay, again, the component ID, that's my number. Okay, I have to choose the type. I'll give it a title. Oh, here's my... Okay. Oh, actually, Amber, I'm going to pass that one over to you while I check something else.
Sure.
Sorry.
Oops, and you can see that I can't spell, but luckily the system can.
Sorry, and just to clarify the question that I just answered, it will validate. So the question was, can you upload an EP prior to uploading the staff data? It will validate. It won't become accessible. Why not? Because there's no staff member, there's no researcher to match it against.
Okay, so some of the questions that we've been asked is around the new section that we've referred to as the main research object. And so I thought this would be a good opportunity to just sort of show you in real life what you could have here. So for the main research object URI, this is where you either have a link to an external website that will take you directly to this research output. So in that case, you might do www. And then the precise details. So hopefully you don't put google.com in there, but that's what the format would look like. If you were uploading, say, for example, a PDF of this research into the TEC's file store, then what you would add here is the exact name of that PDF. So you might have, it might be called BTNRO1.pdf, and then, well, NRO1, exactly, and then what would happen is that this would then become an active link that would link through to the file store. So it is really important that the name of any documents you're uploading to the TEC file store are the exact names that go in here. Now, if you don't have an electronic document and it has to be requested, so it might be a you know, an extremely large book or something like that that you want the panel member to request so that they can look at it, then you'd need to complete that information in the location field. And so so you might have you know, TEC library, if we had a library, and then the specific details of exactly where to get that that physical output. And what, by completing this section, what will actually happen for the researcher, sorry, not for the researcher, for the panel member, is that they will get a notification that they have to request this, and that comes up in a report that they get at their end. So it is really important that if you have something that is a physical copy, do not complete the URI field. You have to complete one or the other. So it's really important that the URI really is an electronic version of the actual research. And if it is a physical copy only, then you have to complete this section here. So that it's not a completing both. It's an either or. So you do need to make sure that if it's electronic, it really is electronic. Right. So don't upload, say, for example, a link to a document that says you need to request this, because then it won't give the panel member the heads up that they do need to request it. Okay, you can also indicate if there's a large file, which we've given some advice on, and there is an FAQ on that. And you can also upload URIs for supporting information. In the guidelines, there's a whole lot of information around what is a main research object and what is supporting information, so I won't go into any detail that here. And you've got 4 spaces for links. Then, of course, you've got your quality assurance, your year available, so of course it has to be within the range. Your output source, which is your bibliographic or equivalent details.
And I did have a look at
I'm just not going to put real ones in.
Okay.
The individual contribution description, which again we talked about in the last webinar, which is about what the researchers contributed to this piece of research, and then the description field, which is about, you know, what is the research and why is it important. Oh, and is it going to work? Yay!
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Amber. Oh, now actually, we were going to, no, we'll move on to something else now. Okay, so there's an EP that we have created manually. As we said, unlikely that most of you will be doing it that way, but it is good to have a look and see what it looks like inside. So let's go back to our EPs now. We're going to go back and have a look at some draft ones, and one of the things that we can do is to change the order of assessment within an EP, and we're going to have a look at one now, and Amber's going to also run us through that. So here's one we prepared earlier, and we're going to go in, and this one, as you'll see, has got 12 OROs. So we're going to go into there. Now, once again, you'll see on the right here, our very smart system will give you lots of tips and assistance. Amber's going to talk us through the ins and outs of changing the order of assessment and a couple of important things that you do need to think about with that.
So because of the change from previous rounds, the advice that has been was sort of given by panels to the TEC following the 2012 was to cluster the OROs because basically cluster them by type so that people could see what was done. So there was a little bit of confusion around this. So back in 2012 you could have had it like this. So you've got your creative work and then you've decided that your discussion paper, your discussion working paper is the next most important thing, and then it's an edited volume. However, this time around it needs to be clustered. So if your most important work that you do want as your very first ORO is a creative work, that's perfectly fine. You pop it in there at number 1. But it does mean that if this ORO 901 is the second most important creative work, then that needs to be presented clustered together. And then this is the other piece of creative work that's in there, so then that needs to become the third. So then that way you've got your work clustered. So then if the next section or the next most important piece of research is of a different type is there, then that's fine. But if it's an edited volume, you might want to change that to your number 4 position. And then so you can see that you're sort of grouping everything together. Now, if you're doing an XML, you wouldn't be doing it like this. This is purely in the format of a manually created evidence portfolio. But if you are doing yours in XML, you do need to remember that the same principle applies, that you are clustering these things together. So I'll just move that because my OCD makes me. There we go.
Thank you, Amber. Okay, great. So I'm just going to, that means I lose my bar, doesn't it? Okay, we've done that now, and we should be able to say, how do we save that?
Up the top there. Actually, no, I think it automatically saves actually when it's the position.
Okay. Yeah, sorry folks, I've got lots of webinar windows sitting in front of my other windows. Yep. Okay, so we just go back into. Yeah. Okay. Now going back to the EP tab, we can also, so we've created one, but we haven't uploaded one yet. So what I'm going to do now is just to show you how to create one using the system interface. And here we have it on the right here, upload an EP file. Okay. And I shall find one. Here. And there it goes. And I'm going to now submit it. Okay, we've been taken to the validation log now. At the moment you can see the status of this is pending. And it's now processing. And we wait with bated breath to find out if it worked. And it was successful. Happy. Have a little look at the log. Okay, so yes, unsuccessful, it went in. So we're happy about that. Now, because this was loaded up this way, I can't edit it online. Any changes that were made to such files, and this also goes for the FTP upload process, these would need to be changed in your research. Usually these would come from a research management system. They'd be changed within there, then re-exported and uploaded. Somebody has actually asked a question here, does the system align with IRIS, I-R-I-S, which is a research system, I'm guessing.
I'm assuming so. And the same thing about ROMs as well.
Yes. So somebody has also asked, I'm just going to pull the questions up. I've got so much on my screen right now. Okay. Somebody says we use ROMs. How does that fit with this? Do we export the EP report from ROMs and simply upload that?
Yes. So, so there's no system-to-system contact with the PBRF IT system and any research management systems. So what you need to do is export the data from your research management systems into an XML format, and then you would upload it directly into our system. Your other option is that you are creating your EPs manually.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, that's how the changes will take place if we're using that way. So the FTP, we're not going to go into that here really, unless to say there is I'll just show you what we've been playing with here, which is it's called FileZilla, and that's a way of using the file transfer protocol to upload large numbers of files or large files.
And actually, we've just noted a good point there that your XMLs need to comply with the PBRF EP schema, and so so that was published earlier. And so what happens there is that you need to make sure that your XMLs are complying with our with the structure that we've put in place.
Yes. Also names. So when uploading XML files, all the files must have unique names. You can't upload a file with the same name twice. It has to be different because the system requires a unique file name within an organisation to maintain the audit trail.
Yeah, and so you don't need to worry about, you need to make sure that in your organisation things like all your NRO files have a unique identifier within your organisation. You don't need to worry about another organisation naming their NRO files the same names, because the FTP site is specific for your organisation. So your password, your login and your password goes to your organisation's file. So there's no crossover. So even though we talk about the TEC file store, that is actually compartmentalised by TEO. So you don't need to worry about someone else's organisation picking up your files.
Okay. Okay. Great. All right. So I just was showing you the very front page of the FileZilla system, which is the FTP, but we decided to just take that offline, as we said before, into a smaller short video, which we'll produce for you soon in the next few days, and we'll load that up onto our information site under the Submitting Your Data tab. So have a look for that coming up very soon. Okay, so we have talked a little bit about looking for EPs, manually creating EPs, adding bits to EPs, uploading EPs using XML, and just touched on the FTP. We've also talked about editing those XML files and how that would be done outside of the system. Yeah?
Yeah. So, for example, just another question that's popped up is that, so if you are using a research management system, just to reiterate, yes, you do need to make changes to the system and then re-export your XML file and then upload it back into the PBRF IT system.
That's Emma's question?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So, that way it makes sure that the data that you're uploading that's sitting in our system matches what's sitting in your system.
We also have a question here about the manual. How do I bring Excuse me just a minute here, folks. Yes. Yes, so a question from Paul, Dr. K's, I should say. EP manual creation requires every staff member to have access, or is this is the idea that an admin person would do that?
Yeah, it is. So the manual entry does mean that there should be, you know, a TEO administrator who's entering all that data. So if that we don't recommend that you give individual staff members access to upload their own EP, because that means that they can then or that they go in and create their EP in the system, because it means that they could actually go in and edit somebody else's. So basically that's why we developed and published the EP template, so that staff members could complete the template, and then a data administrator could actually go in and literally copy and paste that information into the system.
Exactly. So it's not a case of them starting everything from scratch. Yeah. Serena's asked a question about FTP, but we might maybe take that one offline and talk to it in our FTP presentation. Yeah. Okay. We'll take a minute in a little while just to go through the questions and answer anything else we can. But I wanted to just touch now on the staff data tab. Okay, so as you can see, this shows all staff data that has been submitted. We've done one. Okay, and that's what it looks like. So this is the researcher. They have a valid NSN, a national student number. This is their EP name and all those other details. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load one up, and a new one, and see what happens.
I like that. See what happens.
Doesn't that feel?
We're pretty sure. We're 99% confident.
No, actually, I'm going to load one up that I know doesn't work, and I just want to show you why. Okay, I just selected it. I'm going to submit it. There it goes, taking us back to the status. It's pending, waiting, and it was unsuccessful. Now, why was it unsuccessful? Let's go and have a little look. Okay, so you will see here that this is what it looks like. This is what the records look like. So remember, this is a CSV file. Now, there's a problem, and here it is. The researcher last name field is mandatory, and I had deliberately taken that out in that particular one and left it blank. So it will tell you everything that you need to know in terms of any mistakes that have been made. It's just a case of going through that last bit of the validation log report and working out what's gone wrong. Nothing may go wrong, of course. If you remember that there are well, we have the staff data file specifications, which have been available on our website and our information site. Now, I just do need to let you know that we have taken them down momentarily in order to add a little bit more detail and information about staff data file specs. So they're not there at the moment. They'll be up again very shortly, and that's where you go to get the information about how to structure your staff data file. Okay. I'm going to try loading another one now, but before I do, I just want to take you back to the evidence portfolio page, and remember the one that we loaded in, which was
active status. So if you go to the filter by active status, this will be where you've got successful EPs.
Okay, yes, 202, number 202. Okay, so it's telling me staff data hasn't been created here, yeah? Okay, what I'm going to do now is upload a staff data file that I know has, well, I'm hoping has that researcher's staff data in it. Now, what should happen is that they will automatically get matched, and it'll change the status of that EP. Here we go.
And just while we're waiting for that.
Oh, good. Okay, it worked. All right, so let's go back to our EP page now. And you'll see that this has now become, that has changed from no to yes.
Yeah, and you'll notice that unfortunately the staff data created for the one who was previous in there has disappeared. So this is an important thing to remember, that your staff data file.
We're talking about this one at the top here.
Yeah. So
okay.
that, yeah. So the previous one did have staff data created, and what happens is that your staff data file overwrites any other version that you've put in. So you do need to make sure that when you're uploading your staff data file, it contains all the information for every staff member. So you can't put up 10 staff members and then 3 and then another 6 and then 2, because what will happen is that all of those other ones will just be overwritten, so you only end up with 2 lines of staff data for the file 1. So you do need to upload all of the staff that you're expecting to submit portfolios for in one go. So yeah, so you can't upload it incrementally, whereas you can do that with the evidence portfolios. So you can upload your portfolios incrementally, but your staff data file needs to go in with all the staff on it.
Right, thank you, yes. Yeah, so what essentially Nathan's details were there before in the last data file. I loaded up Andrew's, but I hadn't added Nathan's as well. So Nathan's now gone back to not being accessible and Andrew is, and we'll just have a wee look at that. So they're both active. If we look at accessible, yes, it's EP 202, Andrew's one, which is why, because it's matched with a valid staff data record. Okay, hopefully we're not bamboozling you here with too much information. It is pretty simple, and there's not a lot that can really go wrong.
Yeah,
I just want to point you once again to the IT system user guide that's on our information site. That's got everything you really need to know. There's also a really good quick start guide that sort of distills it all into the main steps. There's, as I've said, the help, the tips boxes on here are great, but the other thing is up the top here, just at the very top, there's help, and there's all kinds of and you can actually ask a question here and submit it for assistance.
And then support documentation is there as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the basically that is the user guide in HTML format. So there's nothing different here than in the PDF document that is available on the TC website and on the Google information site.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that's pretty much it for staff data, I think. I've showed you one that didn't work. I've showed you one that did work. I've showed you how by loading the one that did work, but not having the last guy's details, and I overwrote it and made his EP non-accessible. What else do we need to know? I think that's pretty much it for staff data, I think. Oh, we can export it as well if we want to have it, if we want to.
Yeah, and we do recommend, using the export function. So it gives you just a record of everything that's in the system. So once you're feeling confident that everything is in there that you think is going to be in there, you can use these exports as records of, of what you've done. So.
And there we are, that's just an exported, it's exported into Excel for us. In terms of other reports that you can run, if we go back to the EP tab, and we can export base EP data. It's not going to be a lot to show right now.
Yeah. So this gives you a bit of a summary of the NROs, OROs and RCs, and this is quite useful as well for you, again, as a record of what you've submitted, but you can also see if there are EPs with no OROs or no RCs, you can use that as a sort of as a way of sort of quickly checking. If you know that all of your portfolios need to have ROs or OROs or RCs in there, and you see a line that says 0, that might give you a bit of a heads up that you've uploaded the wrong version, or you've something has gone wrong somewhere in your process.
Yes. And then
now the EP, RO and RC details extract is a new one. So we use this at CCZN for reporting, but we decided that that we would make it accessible for TEOs as well. And again, it's the same thing. So you can use this as a way of seeing everything that you've uploaded, making sure that information looks like what you expected it to be. It just gives you a summary. So again, another lot of information that you can use all in one go. Obviously, you can extract the evidence portfolios as PDFs, so you get a whole document. And now you can also get almost like a sort of bulk download of evidence portfolios if you use FTP. So. And this is obviously we'll go into a little bit of detail on the FTP video that we show, but previously you had files that you dropped your EPs into, or files that you dropped your NRO evidence files into. Now there's a third file that sits in your FTP folder, and that's called PDFs, and that will be all the EPs that you've uploaded or created or validated, I should say, that day. So you'll be able to get a PDF of all of those files in one sort of fell swoop, really.
Great.
So you don't have to go through, if you've got 100, you don't want to be clicking on each one and clicking on PDF and downloading it.
No, absolutely not. And some of you have got a lot of EPs to upload. The last thing that your report that you can run is to check errors and warnings. Okay, and so that is going to give you a whole lot of data about what you've done right or wrong. So errors are flagged so just the difference between error and warning, errors are flagged where an EP doesn't meet the minimum requirements for assessment. Okay, so that would be where it doesn't have a researcher matching in the staff data file, or the EP is still in draft format, so it hasn't been submitted or it's failed validation. Okay, and then warnings. There's a lot of different ones that they might come up. So EPs created where the researcher is shown. Can I show them here? Yeah. So differences between staff data and NSI record might be some. What else? Name differences, date of birth differences, staff who have transferred, staff who are concurrently employed. Yeah. So the reason for the warnings is really just to give you a heads up of other things that are happening around some of this. So you might so it's not going to affect validation, so that in the sense that an EP that has NRO files that aren't attached can still be accessible, but you do want your files to be attached. So this will show you all the ones where you do need to sort of put one in, and it'll list the EP and it'll list the name of that file as well. And some of the other things around the staff who have transferred and staff who are concurrently employed, that's where an organisation can still benefit if a staff member is moved, and so that's why we've been advising people to include those people in their staff data file, and they'll pop up on there if there are any on that staff data file. And the final one where staff have no EP anywhere, that will be if a staff member has moved between organisations and you know that they've moved and you've put them on your record,
this might give you a heads up that the other organisation hasn't submitted an EP for them. And if you are aware that that staff member should have had an EP submitted for them because maybe you've actually provided them with all the information, you know, that will give you the heads up that, you know, there's potentially something might have been missed somewhere.
Okay, so lots of useful information in that report. That's pretty much it from our system. We're just going to go back here. Yeah, so that's really what we've just been talking about, the difference between the errors and the warnings. Okay, what you can export. And to get more help. So we are going to take a minute now just to go over that. Then the user guide, which is up on our page, all the technical specifications. As we said before, we've taken them down momentarily because we just wanted to add it a little bit more detail and information.
And there was one small error in the staff data file, which, you know, doesn't obviously affect anything at this stage, but we want to make sure that that it's right for when you actually are developing and uploading those staff data files.
We're just going to go offline for a minute, have a quick look through the questions and see if there's anything that we can answer here and now.
So if you have any questions as well, remember to send them through now.
Okay, folks, we're back. Just a few questions and we'll run through those. So somebody's asked, it's not strictly a technical question, but it is a good one. What happens if the imprint date is 2011, but the book was not available until 2012? What date do we put in?
Yeah, so this is in the NRO section of the EP, and it's in the year available. And what's important is that the date that goes in there is when it was publicly available, so it aligns to that that requirement. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question about RC's research contributions. How do you add those manually?
Yeah, so we didn't show that, but that section just has a little button at the end that says add, and every time you click on that you can add a new RC manually. So that'll pop up with a box for completion, and then you can just add it in, type in the details.
The same as what we did with the NRO.
Yeah, same as what we did with the NRO, yeah.
Okay, Lisa's asked, if EPs are bulk uploaded, can single EPs be uploaded later if they need to be updated, or does the bulk upload need to be repeated?
No, so you can do an upload of EPs you know, in separate sections. So you just need to, if you are doing them, if you are uploading multiple files of XML files of EPs, you do need to remember just to name those differently every time. So your first one, you might call it EPs 1, call the next one EPs 2.
Okay. Yeah? Yep. Okay, someone else has asked who uploads all the data files?
Yep, so the TEO Administrator has the ability to upload all of the data files in the system.
Yeah. And another question from Emma, what does the end date mean? Was that in relation?
Yeah, that was in the errors and warnings report.
Okay.
Yeah, it does give you a warning about where there's been an end date added for a researcher. So if an end date is added, that's where someone has left prior to the 14th of June 2018. So that'll just tell you that you have added an end date there. That might be a transferring staff member effectively, so that gives you that signal there.
Okay. I think that is everything. There's yeah, so a couple of you have asked about the research management systems, and you'll probably, some of you will have ROMs and some of you may have different ones. But if you do have specific questions, you can send them through, but we may just send you back to the research management system people.
Yeah, so we administer the PBRF IT system. We don't have any interaction with the organisations that actually develop other research management systems. So yeah, so we do recommend people go back to the those particular providers. Okay, well, it's time for us to say farewell and ka kite. Thank you very much for attending today, and we hope it's have been helpful. Please don't hesitate to contact us with any other questions. As I said before, we are doing those drop-ins, so for system related and technical problems, but anything else as well that you want to help with, don't be shy to make an appointment to see us. Yeah, we're here to help you, and we're more than happy to do, you know, the one-to-one, face-to-face, you know, sessions.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think that's all, and have a good day, everybody.